welcome back to Spectrum TV. I'm Karen Tui, boys, your host, and this season we're really looking at resilience and relationships, particularly in these tough times that many of us are facing. Your resilience and having skills to have great relationships is so important. And so I have some exciting news before I introduce Lisa, because I'm so super excited about having Lisa here, is that the Spectrum Education Teachers Matter magazine arrived in the office today. So if you haven't subscribed or you are a subscriber, it's in the mail already. We've turned it around so fast today. We had people on the floor. It was so exciting. So it's always like Christmas when it arrives. So I wanted to tell you about that. But look, I want to introduce to you Lisa McInnes-Smith. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Karen.
So Lisa is a world-class inspirational speaker from Melbourne. She is unfortunately just been through all this horrible lockdown that many of you have, and I know. And she's written 7 bestsellers, and she is in the Speaker International Hall of Fame. And her bio says that she is unforgettable. And I know that she's had a huge influence, not even that she knows, huge influence on me, my life, and she even coached me to make the hardest speech I've ever made in my lifetime. And so she is an amazing person. So welcome, Lisa.
Hi, Karen. It's great to be here.
It is. So tell us a little about you, your background, and why this whole topic of resilience and relationships is important to you.
All right. So I don't know if anyone knows that I was a school teacher, physical education and French, and my major in university was sports psychology. So my background is really high performance. I grew up in a family of professional athletes, my dad and my 2 brothers. So I was constantly surrounded by high performing people all the time. Fortunately for me, it was my mother that kept the family financially viable. So fantastic, go mum. But sport was everywhere, and talking about how do we get the best out of people was a way of life. So it's a great way to grow up. And I needed all of that, Karen, because, you know, you do know, but I was born with my left eye permanently closed, which just meant that I had a handicap all the way through my schooling, and I had to contend with what that created from other children, how I had to deal with my own sense of identity and acceptance. So it was been a big journey.
Absolutely. So tell us your definition of resilience then.
That didn't come across very clearly, that question. What was it?
Oh, sorry. What is your definition of resilience?
Oh, the ability to actually recover after trouble. Do you know, in sport, there's so much disappointment. There's so much aspiration and hope, and there's so much not fulfilling that expectation. So resilience in sport is massive because you often have to get back up every week. But I think that's pretty much about life. And I felt like I had to learn to be resilient because I was dealing with the name calling and labeling of others my whole life. And I had to figure out who was I and how was I going to cope through life, along with my handicap. I couldn't get rid of it. It just was going to be a part of my journey.
So what were some of those keys that you discovered, I guess, to be able to be more resilient, if you were to help others? Because, you know, right now in this COVID-19 world, there's a lot of people who are feeling really down. And so to be able to have that bounce back, what are some of those keys or those skills?
Well, look, having a perspective that helps you to see the big picture. My mum was amazing. And so my mum had a tough background, raised by her grandmother, 13th child raised by her grandmother. Like, it was a tough background. But my mother, as she said, you need 3 things, Lisa. You need someone who loves you and someone to love. You need somewhere to live, and you need something to do that matters. And that has kept my perspective, like right through lockdown. Look, I've got everything I need if I've got someone to love, somewhere to live, and something to do. So even if your job is not meaningful to you, you could always be volunteering. So, you know, here's this resilient spirit that builds when you start looking for, who can I help? because it's amazing how when you help others, it actually helps you to overcome. And that's what my mother did for me. She never let me play the victim. She said, you've got everything you need, Lisa, for success. She said, your eye is just a little stumbling block. She said, let's not make it a roadblock. And let you just figure out, all right, who can you help? And so she used to always make me focus on how do I help other kids belong at school and feel like they're included. And, of course, that made me feel like I belonged and I was included.
You make a very important point there, that when we help others, it helps ourselves, but also there's some interesting research that says the bystander who watches that, their good feeling chemicals also rise.
Yes, because the secret to living is giving. And I love things that rhyme because when I'm teaching children, I really love them to be able to keep it, repeat it, say it again. And you know what it's like when you and I are speaking, whatever we can get the audience to repeat, they can keep. So I constantly try to find ways to make, well, I guess the key messages in life repeatable for me. You know, so to be resilient, I need to be talking to myself like I'm my own best coach. I need to be kind. I need to be encouraging. I need to keep reminding myself that I've got what it takes, that there's nothing lacking, that I'm born for trouble and for overcoming. And notice all those statements. I didn't just pick those up as an adult, Karen, I've got to say. You know, I learnt them as a kid and I practiced them through lots of hard times. And I would say that my mother and father would speak them out and I would repeat them because, you know, I think another thing that builds resilience is when people give you time. And my dad, being a professional tennis player, he gave me time and he also said 5 minutes a day, Lisa. You do 5 minutes of anything a day and you'll get really good at it. And so he said that a lot of competence creates confidence. So when we're trying to get kids to bounce back or adults, it's like, where do you want to grow? Can we do 5 minutes of just something? And if it's important enough to you, and for me, it was, you know, I was hitting the ball against a wall 5 minutes every day. I tell you, you do get good when you do it that often.
And I bet when you do the 5 minutes, sometimes it turned into 10, 15, 20.
Absolutely. And sometimes you're just lost in the activity because, you know, with high performers, they get into the flow. And I think any of us can move into flow when we do something that's fun, something that we think is meaningful, or something where we really get this sense of, oh, I'm improving. Do you know, I mean, every little step of growth gives you this incredible sense of, oh, I'm getting better. And I mean, that's also building resilience, isn't it? When you can see yourself grow. So a big part for me was the repetition and learning to get good at things. But I've got to say another part of resilience for me was also learning to stay calm. Some people grow up in families that are very explosive, and often you have one in the family that blows a gasket every now and again. But my father showed me that that doesn't work for sport, and my mother showed me that that doesn't work for relationships. So I love the fact that I learned, all right, play calm. That would be one of my key spots. You might not feel calm. You don't have to be calm, but when you play calm, you become calm. Even saying the word calm. Do you know what's better than the word relax? Isn't that funny? Because calm creates an atmosphere. And here's one of the challenges of resilience is not to catch the atmosphere of other people that don't bring anything worth catching. You know, only catch the good stuff. So creating your own atmosphere is pretty important, and calm is good.
That reminds me that one of my mentors talks about making sure you surround yourself with people who are better than you, who are helping you to be better, and rather than surrounding yourself with people who are pulling you down.
Yes, and that's just, I'm going to say it's more caught than taught.
Yes.
hang out with the right crowd. It's why our parents want us to hang out with kids that are focused maybe, or fun, or in families where it's healthy. Caught more than taught. So if you're not in that environment, then you actually got to sometimes figure out, how do you create that environment in your heart or in your head, by the books you read, by the, I won't say books you listen to, might be a really good movie, the encouraging ones, anything, isn't it, that you can actually put around your life to head you in. And I put posters everywhere, Karen. Beautiful, colourful, bright posters with inspiring words. And you know what? I never get tired of them.
You have to make sure that you keep looking at them and believing them as well, because I'm just thinking of teachers' classrooms. They often have those posters there, but they another mentor of mine says you've got to get them off the walls and into the heart.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about the wallpaper. So you've got to live the message, don't you?
I like that too. And I think when you start not noticing them, they should come down.
Yes.
I have a sign over my bedroom door frame, and it says, "He who forgives first wins." Sorry.
That's an awesome tip for relationships.
My husband climbed up and wrote an S in front of it. "She who forgives first wins." So he and I have this ongoing game of, we know the power of words. Do you know that the right words either can make you laugh and have a sense of humour, or they can make you very angry. And we've got to find out, hey, what are the words that are going to feed each other? You know, feed yourself first. Feed yourself the good stuff. And that is something that actually I think has helped me not just to survive my handicap, but to thrive. Because I've learnt things young that some people take decades to learn. And I've learnt to practice the little things that make me feel good about me, so that other people, when they're with me, feel good about them.
I love that idea of saying the positive words to yourself first, whether that's through affirmation or whatever you use to do that. And I had taught a phrase many years ago when that little voice inside my head says something negative. I would say, "Thank you for sharing." Thank you for sharing. And then I'd, just say the positive on top. Because we need to be our own best friend, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll sometimes say, "Oh, that's interesting. That's some thought." When people give you feedback you don't want.
Well, that's fascinating. Yeah. So tell us more about this power of words, because I know that you talk about this quite a lot. And so what else can you tell us about the words that we use, particularly for teachers in a classroom, really?
Yes. Well, I can tell you, for teachers and for parents listening, that both of us as adults, we need to recognise that the words that we say to ourselves are the words that spill out onto others. So some parents say, "Oh, look, I talk to myself badly, but I never talk to the kids that way." And teachers can say that. It's like, no, that doesn't work. We actually our words are the overflow of our heart. So what you fill yourself with, head, heart, who you think you are, that's what spills out. And I really saw that when I was teaching, because I was teaching physical education and French to kids that didn't want either of them. I was teaching in a multicultural school, 52 nationalities, where a lot of the kids just didn't have any activity as their, social background. And I can remember that I had to show them that every little activity was fun. And it's pretty funny looking back that now at my age, I still do all the little things I used to teach them. Like I would say, just do 2 push-ups. Just do 2. They go, "I hate push-ups." I'm like, "Yeah, but just do 2. Because I understood the power of doing a micro habit, like a tiny thing that you could do every day. So when you talk to yourself and you're trying to talk yourself into do something healthy, just say, just do 2. Just do 2 sit-ups. Just do 2 squats, because, you know, you often don't just do 2, but that's how you talk yourself into beginning. And the biggest part of learning to win is to begin, because most of the things that help us to win in life are tiny little things, and they start with a thought, and then you confess it with your mouth and you speak it out. Why do you speak it out loud and not just think it? Because your ears need to hear it. Isn't that funny? It sort of goes round the cycle. And when your ears hear it, even though you've already thought it, there's power in that. It's like you're getting to hear it multiple times. And we tend to buy ideas that we hear, 5, 6, 7 times. So we need to keep telling ourselves the things that we believe about ourselves, about others, about what we're going to do. So, the just do 2 really helps. And I've got to say that sometimes you just got to find words that become the banner over your life. You might not believe them yet. I wanted to be lovely, Lisa, when I was a little girl, especially when I was a teenager. I wanted to be lovely. And the boys said I was ugly. And so I changed it, and I would say to myself, but I'm lovable, Lisa. I'm lovable. And, it took me years to believe I was lovely, but lovable was such a good stepping stone and such a good banner over my life that my parents had said to me when I was young, you're smart. Now, pretty would have been nice, but smart wasn't bad. And I used to say when kids were tough on me, but I'm smart. But as I got older, I wanted to be lovable. And so, finding words even to talk about yourself. This is the private conversations we have in our bedroom, in the bathroom, look in the mirror, you're getting out of the shower, like all those little times where you could either put yourself down or build yourself up. And, hey, it's harder for people to love someone that doesn't love themselves.
So hard.
And so teachers, we need to really find our strengths and affirm our strengths and live our strengths, because I'm still a teacher. I've just have more varied audiences and more varied ages, but I've never stopped teaching, Karen. I mean, you and I, we love taking truths that we know go from generation to generation. I look at the books that I've written, I think, how come they're still in existence 30 years later? Well, just simply because truth is the truth, Yeah,
absolutely. So, Lisa, it makes me think too that when a teacher hears a student say negative words, then that's a reflection of who they think they are as well. When a kid says, I'm dumb, I'm stupid, I can't do that, often it's a reflection of how they're feeling, and so we need to put more of that good stuff in for them, because they might not be getting it from other places.
Yes, and I often think that just the phrasing like, I've noticed. Do you know when the child said, I'm so stupid? I go, I've noticed how much effort you put in when you help that little preppy. I've noticed that you were very kind to your classmates the other day when we were, whatever. And that little phrase, even if you haven't noticed anything, just start with, I've noticed, and the brain will actually remember. And that's so helpful. Most of us, we have to will ourselves to say the words that work, even before we feel like it's going to work. I've just worked with so many kids now that are really putting themselves down. And I've got to say, so many women that have put themselves down and made themselves small. And constantly my practice is to show them how to actually make the picture of themselves bigger. Like here we are in the frame. Do you know, we're growing into who we're actually created to be. And we're magnificent. Come on. Are we not extraordinary? Just the brain is extraordinary, let alone the body. I'm often teaching kids just that. It's like, you don't know what you're grateful for, just look at your body and go, I'm grateful for 2 hands. I'm grateful for 2 eyes that can see. And, in my case, one that sees better than the other. I mean, I'm grateful for a mouth that can express my feelings. I'm grateful to have a parent that listens to my problems. Like whatever it is, we should be saying it out loud, because that also is making us resilient.
Funny, I have a gratitude Facebook page, and we post 3 things we're grateful for every day. And yesterday, my gratitude was for my incredible body. So my feet and legs that hold me up, and my eyes that see, and my voice that can make an impact. Yeah, so it is that, my heart that beats, my lungs that, fill with air. And it's just like, when you focus on that stuff, and it's like, it just helps you makes you feel stronger, and gives you the courage to move into spaces that perhaps you're not so happy about.
Yes, and even writing it down, for children and adults, even when you find it hard to say it, it's interesting when you write it, the brain processes in a deeper way when we actually write the statements, which is, why they're now trying to get people at night to say, yeah, let's write 3 things I'm grateful for. I think about when I grew up Catholic, so we went to bed at night saying prayers, say things like, thank you, God, for the good day, or thank you for my teacher that was kind to me today. Thank you for my friend that played with me. I look back at that practice and think, I've got to say, my dad didn't believe anything, but my dad still allowed my mum and himself to take us through that practice. And I think it built something into my brothers and I that maybe couldn't be built other ways.
And I think also what we found on our gratitude page is when you share it publicly, that's also another level, because it's just writing it down, but when you're actually sharing it publicly, there's a lot of vulnerability about that. Yeah. It's like, people are going to read what I'm grateful for, and then you can't compare your gratitude with somebody else's. So it's fascinating. Lisa, I know that one of the things that I really admire about you is the relationship you have with your husband. And I have spent years modeling a little bit of you and your wonderful husband, and some of the things that you do. So can you tell us what are some of the keys to keeping your relationship so strong?
Oh, that's good. That's a good question. We're really different. So we had to learn to talk out the hard topics up front, which my husband wasn't good at, because he was good at doing the silent treatment. So we had a big journey of learning to talk about our feelings. But, I've got to say, there were times I threw my hands in the air and went, we're never going to get there. But I always got myself help, Karen. I'm not at all afraid to get counsellors, helpers, friends, people that had great marriages, and I would ask them, what should we do? So really, I think our marriage is a big result of learning from marriages around us. But we had to put rules in around fighting. That was one of the earliest. That was such a good thing looking back, because everyone was suggesting that words spoken that were really harsh are very hard to undo. So they said, you need to think about, while you're in a good mood and you're doing well, what do you find unacceptable? And so he and I talked about what's unacceptable. What didn't he want to be called? Like, we were never allowed to compare each other to our parents.
Good strategy.
Yeah, but like, they're little things that you could easily do in anger. We decided that you could never swear at one another. Now, we know that people are prone to just use random bursts of language, but when we thought about it, we both said we wouldn't like it at all if the other one did that to us. So then we talked about whether we should just take it out of our vocabulary for good. Like, when you've got kids, it's a really good motivation. And so we did, which meant that we weren't in the habit of using, I'm going to say, just random or abusive language, and therefore it didn't just come out, angry. But we also just had rules around how we fought. So that's a great tip for everyone, I think. Put some rules down on the page, find something, and with your kids, in classrooms, can I say, have some rules of how we think as a team, which we do with sports teams. We're going to disagree. It's good to disagree. We want different opinions. But how can we express it so that everyone can hear? Another thing, how could we listen to one another? In other words, let one speak. Zip it. It was his turn, even though you're dying to come back. It stops you from, just spending all your time trying to come up with your comeback. And so his turn to speak, my turn to speak. And I still remember, Karen, there was one time I was really struggling, like little children working. I wasn't coping well at all. And my husband just sat me down one day and said, I just want to hear everything that's on your heart. He said, I don't care if it takes all day. That was the most romantic, amazing thing my husband could have ever done, because I think I took most of the day and I cried my way through a lot of it, and I was angry through some of it. But the fact that he gave me the space to just unload, because, when I'm talking to people about resilience, I think one of the most important things is to have someone that you can just share your feelings with. And they don't come back with anything. They just let you talk. I think that's a huge asset. That a problem shared is a problem halved. I think half the time just getting it out of the darkness and just letting it out, half the time we can see that we don't want to own that stuff. But it's tormenting us, so we need to just say it and then sort it. Say it and then sort it. So that was a really powerful thing, and probably the main thing that builds and fills our love tank is that we notice when the other one does something that we like and we say it. And we know that you need 5 positives to 1 negative just to survive in a work relationship. In a home relationship, you need almost 20 positives to 1 negative. Wow. So I'll tell you, everybody, you better get going, because most people don't practice this stuff. And I'll say things like, oh, you look cute in that shirt. Oh, I love your hair like that. So physical things, notice, and little things like, oh, thanks for just picking that up. Thanks for, washing my cup out. Thanks for the cuppa. Like, don't take anything for granted. Always acknowledge it. And I think that that's built in us. It's filled our love tanks. We both do it. And, I was better at it at the beginning than my husband, because I grew up with more of that. But I learned that if I don't role model it, then how can he ever catch it? So it's the same with our kids. You might do it for years before they catch on, but it's a really good investment in the future.
It reminds me that often people say to me, but he's supposed to do it anyway, because I say to my husband, thanks for doing the dishes, or thanks for wiping the bench down, or thanks for getting the washing in. And they go, but why do I thank him? Because it's their job, or they're supposed to do that. And I'm like, no, thank them. They'll do it more.
That's right. What you reinforce, you repeat.
So just the tiny little things. It's like, thanks for turning the heat lamps on in the winter in the shower for me before I got in. You knew I was coming. Just those tiny little things, and you reinforce it over and over again.
Yes, because when we talk about kindness, but really kindness, isn't it? It's just a whole set of words. Kindness is noticing. Look, I think that, teachers that helped me cope through my early days, they noticed what I did well when I was struggling with who I was and how kids were hurting me. But they kept noticing, and they kept telling me and pointing out where there were good things. I was trying to balance out the other stuff that was happening. And I can remember all the teachers that were kind to me. I know their names. I know what they did. I can't believe that all these decades later, those faces are still right here.
Absolutely. Lisa, there's one thing that you taught me that I have passed on so many times, and it's years and years ago. I was at a workshop with you in Australia, and you said that you need to passionately kiss your partner every single day. Well, at the time, I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And so I texted my husband and said, Lisa says we have to passionately kiss every single day. Well, long story short, it's probably 10 years ago, easily. Every single day for many, many years, my husband would say, have you kissed your husband passionately today? Ask me every single day. And, of course, so we did. And it's taught me so much in a relationship. It taught me that, sometimes if you're crossed with it, you can't kiss them passionately when you're crossed with them. So it taught me to let stuff go really quickly. It taught me to I was worth being passionately kissed every single day. It taught me so much. And now we just do it. He doesn't ask anymore. It just happens every single day, which is just gorgeous. It's just become like brushing your teeth. It's just one of those habits that happen every single day, sometimes a few times. But then other women often, when I tell the story, say, oh, yeah, but what if it leads to something else? And I'm like, well, sometimes it does. And sometimes it doesn't.
You should be so lucky.
I know. And it's exciting. And it's like, so that quick 20, 30 seconds of connection every single day has so deepened the relationship that we have. And that came from you. So I want to publicly thank you for my passionate kiss every day.
Well, I love that. And I want to tell you that I'm still teaching people. And I usually say to them, 6 seconds.
6.
Make the kiss last 6 seconds. Now, for those that are under stress, it seems like forever. It's a little bit like they say you can't fight while you hold hands. Mm-hmm. Well, that same thing is that sometimes Colin and I will just press our lips together. Like we might not be having a great day, but we laugh and we go, 6 seconds. Nose to nose and lips to lips. But see, what it does is it actually releases the tension, because that's the other part. Do what's right and the feelings follow. That's the motto for Colin and I. We know what's right. We know what's right and wrong in a marriage. We don't need anyone to tell us. But sometimes we don't want to do what's right. We want to do it my way. I want to make you pay. I want you to suffer. I mean, how many times have you just felt so self-righteous? But you can be self-righteous and see yourself right out of the relationship, or you can figure out, all right, how am I part of the solution rather than the problem? And so he and I talk about that stuff because we're still really different and we do business together. So we live together, we travel together, we work together, we play together. Imagine if we didn't get along.
Yeah.
So we have to be quick at being resilient in our relationship, and we have to recover fast. And sometimes we'll say to each other, I know this seems like a big deal, but how important is it to you out of 10? And he'll go, oh, it's a 7. And I'll go, well, it's a 9 for me. And so then we figure out, how important is it to each one? And it opens the door to further conversation, which is half the time part of the solution.
And that all comes back to the words, right? Because it's all about the conversation and the speaking your truth and working a way through what's challenging and difficult.
Yes. So, it's expressing love, really. What is love? Love is a commitment to keep doing the right thing, regardless of how you feel. We do it to our kids all the time. My definition of love, that's, in the couples book, is love is giving people dignity and respect when you don't feel like it and they don't deserve it.
Beautiful.
That makes me laugh, even when I, repeat it.
And that's so challenging, and I so get that. So thank you for sharing that. Lisa, as we begin to finish up, we could talk all night now. I know that you've got a program, Calm the Farm process for teens, sorry. Can you just quickly explain this, because we'll put the link below.
It's not a program. It's simply a 19-minute video that we've created for the senior students, years 10, 11, 12, just while they're under exam pressure. And of course, there's some of the TAFE kids, they're trying to do practical assessments right now in Australia and New Zealand. Assessments are everywhere. And we just thought, here's 5 tips to give these senior students ways to cope. And so that's what I've done. So if they just look up calmyourfarm.com, I think that's what it is. It's on YouTube, not .com. And that way they can just get a hold of it, be lovely. And if they want to get a hold of me, lisaspeaks.com.
Absolutely. So to our viewers, you can see that this woman is just incredible, unforgettable, absolutely. You can see the passion and the heart that she brings to life, and the power of the words that she uses. So, Lisa, thank you so much for being our guest on episode 10, and yay! And it's been you've been on my my list for a long time.
I'm here. I loved it.
That's part of the COVID. I knew you can't escape. You're not somewhere in the world. I knew you'd be home. So there's a win for me. To our beautiful viewers, thank you for continuing to watch. And next week we have another wonderful friend and colleague of mine, John Shackleton, who's going to be talking about mindfulness. And I know last week I said Lisa has helped transform my relationship, and next week when we talk to John, he helped me in one of my most darkest hours, and with some advice that just turned my life around. And so thank you so much. Sorry, what I want to say is thank you, Lisa, for your input, and be here next week for John, because he will be equally as stunning. And Lisa, I just want to let you know that one of our viewers tonight has said, thank you, I needed to hear that. So I'm pleased that I tuned in. So yeah. There we go. Yay. So I look forward to seeing you all same time next week on Spectrum TV. Until then, keep safe and keep learning.